morning to all of you ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our live safari on our theoretically sunrise safari. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jamie and I have Brian back on camera with me for the first time since he's been back from leave. He's hiccuping very gently at the back there, so if you hear the odd hic sound, it's coming from Brian and not the vehicle this time, not today anyway. We're back on Jigger. Jigger is up and operational and fully functional once again. And driving around on Wendy is James, who's accompanied by the fantastic camera work of Tebs. Now, James and Scott have headed off to around Buffelshoek Cutline, because yesterday afternoon there were reports that the wild dogs were on their way down from Buffelshoek. And hopefully they're going to be arriving somewhere around our property sometime this morning. We'll keep our fingers crossed. And if you are joining us for the first time, this is a live safari, so everything that you're seeing on your screen is happening right here on this cool and cloudy day on Juma and Arathusa Game Reserves in the Sabi Sands. And I say it's cool and cloudy, I would say that is also a very welcome relief to all of us. It has been blisteringly hot. It's now 22 degrees centigrade, which is around 71 degrees Fahrenheit. A nice there. I'm chasing away the older cow, and I'm not sure why. Oh, now you chased them all away. Well, yes, there were some elephants there before they decided to start bullying each other into the bushes. That's all right, we'll find our way back onto the road and relocate them. Lisa, in answer to your question, elephants wear their tusks in different ways, and I always find that fascinating, because you'd think they'd all use them in pretty much, they're used for exactly the same thing, so you'd think they'd all use them in exactly the same way. There's a log there. But you always see differences in terms of the way that elephant tusks are worn down. Now, Lisa, I'm not sure if you were watching, I lose track of days. It was fairly recently where we had that one female with the incredibly sharpened tusks. And I mentioned that I couldn't understand how she'd managed to do that. They almost looked like spear points. So evenly right around, not just worn at the bottom or worn at the tip, but worn right the way around. I'm trying to duck and dive around the buffalo thorn trees so that we don't eviscerate Brian. The fear of it seems to have stopped his hiccups, which is, I guess, a good thing. Okay, right. There's trees, and we're going to slowly meander our way out of them. There's a really good question that's come through from Dave, who's watching us all the way in Texas. And Dave, good morning to you as well, and welcome to our sunrise safari. Dave wanted to know how far the tusks extend into the elephant's head. And the answer is quite far, it's deep. You can imagine that a tooth like that, don't worry, this tree will pop back up as soon as I'm over it. A tooth like a tusk needs a tremendous amount of solid root to help keep it safe. So in terms of, let's say with that female, with the tusks her size, probably, hold on, let me get onto the road before I take my hands, both hands off the steering wheel. That's probably a wise suggestion. So that female's tusks probably extend about that far, and I'm just talking about the base, not even the root. They probably extend about that far into her face. Really deeply anchored and secure. You get some elephants, there they've popped out, thank you Ellies. You get some elephants like the Magnificent Seven, who are displayed up in a museum in Letaba in the Kruger National Park, where those tusks weighed one tusk, and the heaviest one, or one of the heaviest one, was in the region of probably about, all right Ellies, the wind's unsettling them. Something's got them upset. Not sure what it is. There's something playing out in the dynamics here with the female. Is it a young male maybe that's causing all this trouble? No, definitely not. Interesting. You can see the way they're walking, they are unsettled. But not unsettled enough to not have to stop for breakfast. Interesting explanations as to what's happening here with this behavior. Chris Rogue, you suggested that maybe that one female thought she had the right to access to food because she has a baby with her. And certainly I think elephants are capable of that kind of rational thought. And Edward, you suggested maybe it doesn't, or she doesn't like the juvenile for some reason. It could well be. I don't think so though. I think it's a combination of wind. There might also have been a male that unsettled them sometime earlier or sometime last night. We have had a couple of big males wandering around, and there was definitely a boy in must. I've seen his tracks and his urine dribbles along the road. Can't see him in this herd, but I wouldn't be surprised if that is what unsettled them. I got distracted, but I was just talking about root depth, just to finish off the question. There are elephants, or there have been elephants in the wild with one tusk weighing in the region of 80 kilograms, which is, hold on, about 180 pounds. That's one tusk. And then the same on the other side. So you can imagine how incredibly deep those roots have to go in order to anchor that weight into the elephant's mouth and allow them to actually use them for the purposes that they have them. Well, I don't think our Ellies are going to be cooperative. So we've got a couple of comments coming through, and through my eyes photography, you were suggesting that elephant herds can communicate through poking. I think they definitely do. I think the message was very clear there, and that message was please move. Maybe without the please, maybe it was just move. And Heidi, you were saying that sisters can sometimes be a bit pushy. And speaking of pushy, this poor impala herd, I've been watching them. They came, when the elephants went into that block, they came dashing out. This is now the second time. They've been sprinting around. They're definitely being pushed around by the elephants as well. And it looks like the last thing in the world that these impala ewes want. They're so pregnant. Okay, well, I'm going to see if our elephant herd decides to come out, because I'm curious to see what's happening, why that dynamic is happening. But in the meantime, let's head across to James and get an update from him.
Right, so we've come to Buffelshoek Dam, And there are a lot of scavenging and water-loving birds here, and what you can see at the moment is a hamakop standing on the island of hippos that is in the middle of the, well, dam's quite a strong word for what we've got here, puddle more like. And we've just watched that hamakop eat a fish from the back end of that hippo, which was quite interesting. Then there are a whole lot of marabou storks. They're the most numerous birds that you can see there. Some woolly necks as well. They're slightly smaller with white necks. And there's also a yellow-billed stork here. He is lurking off to the left. We'll show him to you when he comes into screen. And then, of course, the beautiful saddle-billed storks that they're just popping into picture now. Just amazing. So you can see that as things dry out here, so it becomes a boon for the scavengers, like the marabou storks. They will be eating the big catfish. The other storks will be taking much smaller fish, because they have to swallow them whole, and they're a bit smaller than the marabous. And there is a marabou actually that has a broken beak. I'm just trying to see if I can see him. There he is. Andre, he's that one right there. Now, a marabou stork is not an attractive bird at the best of times, but look at this chap on the right-hand side there. On the left, you've got the yellow bill, and on the right there is a marabou stork with a broken beak. Look at that. He's lost the top of his beak. And that will definitely affect his ability to eat. And it will not grow back. So, I mean, he's an extremely odd-looking creature. Now, there is a bit of a breeze blowing, which is very nice at the moment. I've actually put my jersey on. Despite giving Brian gears about this morning and his inability not to go out without a jacket, I have put a jersey on, so it's a bit cooler. And virtual tourist in Texas, you want to know if we ever get sort of extreme weather here, like tornadoes. No, we don't really. We're quite lucky in that way. The most extreme weather we get are big storms that come in if there's a low pressure system off the Mozambican coast. Sometimes they have the South African or the Southern Hemisphere equivalent. Oh, there's a kingfisher coming. That's why that stork started moving so quickly. It's right above us. They'll all be very wary of the fish eagle. Anyway, he's way above us. We can't get a picture of him just yet. Look at the way they fly there. So virtual tourist, yes, certainly a little bit of stormy weather is the most obvious thing that we get, and that's when cyclones, which are the southern hemisphere equivalent of a hurricane, if they hit the Mozambican coast, we can get some pretty heavy storms, but nothing in the way of tornadoes. Something moved. There you go. There's a fish, little fish. You see them crushing it up like that. They'll try and sort of break the bones up a bit before swallowing. That's exactly what he's doing now. But he has to be very careful because his friends will try and steal it from him if he lets it go for more than 3 seconds. And the hamakops that we were watching earlier spent quite a lot of time sort of chewing and dropping and then really kind of macerating the fish up before swallowing it. They don't break the skin, but they do break all the bones inside. And I think that must make the digestive process a bit easier. Now, there were also some goslings here yesterday, and we think the goslings, Jandre spotted what seems to be a female goose sitting on a whole lot of perhaps goslings the other side of the dam there. We won't be able to see her very well with the amount of zoom we have, but there she is. You can see her just lurking there. There she is. And we were chatting a little bit about extreme weather. Extreme weather patterns now. Sorry, I'm just listening to the Game Drive radio, seeing if there's any updates. There aren't anything. There isn't anything at the moment. And all the way from Arizona, we were chatting a little bit about. Sorry, I'm getting very distracted by the Game Drive radio, which is exploding into life because everyone's getting mobile from the lodges around here at the moment. Right, we were chatting about extreme weather, and we also want to know now about the extreme temperatures that we get here from Arizona. And we do get some extreme temperatures here, not very extreme. You say that they get to about 120 in Arizona. I think 120 degrees here. Oh, look. There are the goslings. There they are. We'll try and count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She hasn't seemed to have lost any further. Yeah, they're definitely six there now. That's very sweet. Anyway, so yes, up to 120 degrees. I think it's probably about 40 degrees here in Celsius. No, it's not 120. It's probably about 44 or 5. Certainly we'll get that once or twice a year in this area, but yeah, about 42 degrees Celsius, so say 110 is probably about as hot as it gets around here, and definitely not very cold. 4 degrees Celsius, which I think is about probably about 40 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter time. Very sweet little goslings. They will have to watch out. These marabous would have a go at them, definitely, I think, if they had a chance. I think also that the fish eagle that was flying around would have a go at them. As we were just looking at that marabou stork with the broken beak, and we were chatting about how difficult it might be for him to eat and how much uglier he is already. I mean, uglier, and even ugly bird has. I'm really getting very tongue-tied at the moment. How much uglier an already ugly bird can get. And Anna Marie, you say an underbite undertaker. Yes, very much so. I think it's almost otherworldly. Probably using his lower beak as a kind of stabbing instrument, like a spear. Eating out of the mud. I don't know what he's finding in there. Possibly the odd frog. Question about that pink pouch below some of the marabou stalks. There was one definitely. Andre, I can't see him anymore. Can you see him? There was one along the right-hand bank there that had a very pink pouch around his neck. Now, Lucy and Lois and Buffalo, Lucy in Indiana, you want to know what that pouch is. And what it is, if I'm not mistaken. Yuck. What it is, when it gets very pink like that, apparently there is some... I'm just trying to find my bird app. As far as I understand it, what it is it's got to do with breeding, and when it goes bright pink like that, they've all got that kind of pouch there, but once it gets fleshy like that and turns pink, I think it's got something to do with the breeding. So I'm just going to quickly look it up on my exceptional bird application that I have on my telephone, and then I will tell you. Here we go. Large bulbous air sac used in display and as a cooling mechanism. Ooh, was that the... What was that, Chandra?
Goshawk.
Oh, goshawk. Wonderful. I would move to go and look at it, but I think we'll lose the picture, I'm afraid. Oh, that's a pity. Do you think we should try? Maybe we should try and move. So, it's a large bulbous air sac, basically, and I think it's extended for display purposes when they're displaying for mating, and also apparently to cool down. So they can probably push it out a bit to expose a bit more skin when they're hot, and that helps them to cool down. Right, let's just quickly go around the corner there and see if we can't get a view of that hawk. But really, this is a bird as paradise. There are also lots of little birds around. There's a couple of swallows flying about. There's a sandpiper. I don't think we're going to get through here very easily, are we, Jean-Andre? Let's try and see. What's your head here, Jean-Andre? Through this very sort of dry landscape that you can see here. Rolf, you from Michigan, and you might be a new viewer, and if you are, and this is the first question we've had from you, welcome and thank you for. You want to know, if the water dries out completely, where will the hippo go? Rolf, there are a couple of dams around the place. There's a big one just on Buffels Hook. There it is there. It is an African harrier hawk called Gene, and it's now flying away. What a deeply, deeply irritating bird. There it is, sitting there, being mobbed by starlings. I'll go a little bit forward. There it is there. Got in there, Jean-Andre. There we go. So while we look at the African harrier hawk, which is what that is, used to be called a gymnogene, which I think is a much more sort of romantic name. Rolf, they can go also to the Sand River, which is about 4 kilometers to the south of us. So at the moment there is plenty of water for the hippos, but you know, if these conditions continue for too long, look at that. Starling is not happy. And the reason the starling is not happy is because it is a hole nesting bird, and the gymnogene's favorite food, of course, is the chicks of hole nesting birds. It'll go and stick its double jointed intertarsus into tree holes and fish out the chicks. He's a magnificent bird though, isn't he? I'm not sure what he's having a go at there though. Little sandpiper got it, not sandpiper, plover got out of the way. So well, I'm just going to count the species that we've seen here. So we've seen marabou storks, yellow-billed storks, woolly-necked storks, saddle-billed storks, common sandpiper, gymnogene, three-banded plover. This is amazing. Yeah. comical. At least 10 or 12 species of bird just at this little waterhole this morning, and I'm sure I've missed a few as well. You don't often see these gymnogenes in this kind of openness. They're often in sort of thick trees. I'm probably just having a drink, I think. You can see the stripes underneath the belly. You can see the white markings on the tail. Bright yellow face, of course. You can probably also hear the breeze blowing through here. There are another 2 dove species, so we're up to 14 at least now. Just at this dam. I think it's worth just waiting here to see what he does. I think he'll eventually, well, he will definitely eventually fly off, but to have a gymnogene in this kind of position is fantastic. Oh, there's another one I didn't count, the blacksmith lapwing. You can hear it going ping, 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 ping. So it's 15. I can hear some elephants calling in the background. I wonder if they won't come down to drink. Although to drink here for elephants like clean water. They're not a huge fan of this kind of muddy stuff. So maybe they're just browsing. The face has changed colour there from that yellow to pink. And that's normally a sign of breeding, but it's definitely gone from very sort of lemony yellow to a rosy kind of pink colour. Now the gymnogene is roughly, I'm just going to look quickly in the book for the exact size, but it sits about that high off the dashboard. So a pretty big bird, maybe even a little bit bigger than that. And the other thing I want to check was I thought they only had that rosy face when they were about to breed, which would be around about the right time of year. Let's just have a quick look. There is the gymnogene in its various guises. Let's just have a quick look. Flushes red when excited. There we go. It flushes red when excited. Beautiful. And they sit at about 60 centimeters, yeah. So about roughly the same height as I showed you. 60 centimeters is about 2 feet. In fact, it's exactly 2 feet. All of these are juveniles, the brown ones. And then they get that grey colour, lovely grey colour with a yellow head when they become adults. Right, let us return back around the other side of the dam, I think, and see if there isn't anything there. We'll go down around this way. Well, we'll try. Now, we'll go back around to where I thought I saw sandpiper. Now, we often call sandpipers a wading bird or a wader. An RC in the Netherlands, if you want to see the wader, we will definitely try and find the wader. We also have the 3-banded plover, which would be considered a wader as well. Just try and extricate us here. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to feed our way down there without making great conflagration, so we might just go back the way we can. We also, of course, we saw that marabou stork with a pink sack, and it's got a bit of a black scaly thing on it. And Barbara and Judy, you want to know what that is, and is that marabou a bit sick? I thought it might be a tumour yesterday. I don't know, I haven't had a look at it. It couldn't be a tumour, it could just be kind of a pimplish growth. I mean, the marabou stork, of course, is so abominably ugly at the best of times. We'll have a look now. If we can find him. Oh, another bird, pied kingfisher. I'm just going to try and find some level ground to stop on. Very easily move down here so that the birds don't become alarmed and fly off in a great swarm. So I will just look with my binoculars, and Cheryl, while we're doing that, you say wild turkeys puff themselves up like that. Oh, I see. When they're trying to breed. Can you see it there, Jean-Andre? Horrible, nasty growth on the end of the gular sac. Ooh. Yes, I would say that doesn't look very healthy at all, but the rest of the bird is in pretty good nick, so I really don't know why it would be. It looks sort of scaly almost, like an eczema. Of course, move. That one stork is now being a pain in the complete pain. Go on. Move out the way. That's it. And Edward, I'm not sure if you're being serious about this comment or not, but you say maybe it's a reaction to the algae. Edward, I don't think it's a particular reaction to algae, but it's certainly it's very very unattractive. And Ria, I agree with you, a really amazing collection of storks here, really. I mean, 4 species in one place is quite astonishing for this area. Not so amazing in a place like the Okavango, obviously, where there's a lot more water. But for here, to have marabous and saddlebills and woolly-necked and yellow-billed in one spot is really quite amazing. I don't think we get any other kind of stork here. I suppose we do get black storks here as well, sometimes. Yeah, one of them's caught a fish, gone into the gular pouch. Look at the little goslings. You see them there, don't they? Now, we're just looking at the goslings there, and Faye in Canada. You want to know how long it takes for them to come out of their nest and when they're hatched. Faye, they move almost immediately, you know. Probably a couple of days before they start to move with mum and dad. And you can see them foraging on their own immediately. It's very seldom that a group of geese are able to maintain the entire family without losing a couple, and you can see why. They're pretty vulnerable like that, and mum and dad have just left them foraging for themselves at the moment. Although I say that, now apparently the Scott says that the pair of Egyptian geese that bred around the Arathusa waterhole have maintained all 7 of their babies for a long time now, which I think is amazing. watching that stork there, keeping a beady eye, and I'm sure the parents are keeping a beady eye on his intentions. I suspect one of those storks would probably kill one of those goslings if given a bit of a chance. Ooh. Yeah. So definitely a little bit of worry there for the parents. So, Ria, you say you can only count 5 goslings. There are definitely 6 there now. I think they're just quite difficult to see. You can see how very cleverly camouflaged they are. It really is amazing. And they're totally differently coloured, of course, from the adults. Oh, look, this one's got a fish. Oh, swallowed it straight down. Didn't even bother with any of the crushing of bones. That's one of the parents, that's the father. And you can tell that's the dad from the colour of his head. You can just see his head is a lot more kind of painted, if you like, want of a less crude term, a lot more painted than the females. So that's dad having his breakfast while mum just defends her babies from the marabou storks. So they actually, I was just checking quickly on my bird app, it's not even a few days they spend in the nest, you know, it's only 6 hours or so apparently after hatching. They then start to move around. That is amazing, 6 hours before they're moving around the place. So I think we'll sit here for a bit longer. Scott and Jamie are out and about, also looking for large animals. And while they're doing that, I think we should just enjoy what is a very rare pleasure. When this dam fills up, so lots and lots of guesses as to what exactly is going on with that gular sac, and it's a rather nasty growth there. Chris Rogue, you said, could it be a hernia? I don't think it could be a hernia. I think a hernia has to happen, if I'm not mistaken, around a muscle, and that's definitely not a muscled part of the sac. I think it's probably pulled in and out by muscles around the side, but I don't think it's a hernia, Chris. It's not impossible. And then a postulation that perhaps it might be an abscess. An abscess being a sort of dying nerve or infected nerve. I don't think so. To me, I think Scott's guess that it could be a tumour of some sort is, I think that's the best explanation. Strange growth. Very odd. And then Teresa, you reckon that the feathers of that one odd-looking bird are gone on the left-hand side of his wings? No, they're not. They're perfectly normal. I think he looks in very good nick, other than that rather beastly-looking growth on the back of his gular air sac. I don't think that he looks in bad shape at all. I think he looks in very good shape. His wings are well preened. And while we continue to look at that very strange sacking there, Gilly in Wisconsin, you say maybe it was a fish. Do the fish go through that sack? They wouldn't go through the sack necessarily. They go down the throat. But I suppose if the sack was extended when they ate, I suppose a fish could touch the inside of it. And you say maybe it's the fins that have got or the bones that have spiked in there. I don't think so, Gilly. You know, they're so careful about how they swallow fish, and they swallow them whole. Unless it's got a very strange fish at a very strange angle, I don't think that's what it's called. That to me looks like it's growing on the outside, on the skin. I don't think it's growing from the inside. But it is deeply, A, unattractive, and B, looks very uncomfortable. You may have also heard a brown-hooded kingfisher going, "Pity for you, pity for you, pity for you." I think we're up to 17 now. And Bob in Connecticut, you want to know what else we can hear. So we did hear that brown-hooded kingfisher just now. Let's have a listening segment and let's see what we can hear other than that. In the background, you can maybe hear a ring-necked dove. Some rattlings of sticklers. Virtual starlings, the wing beats of the marabou storks, the laughing dove, the Egyptian geese, quack, 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 quack. What was that, Sean? Over here? I think it was one of the marabous. Rattlings of sticklers going bzz, 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 in the background. And we do sometimes get some cormorants around here. Anna Marie, you say you like cormorants very much. You want to know why we don't get more of them here. You say the black reed cormorant is a particular favourite of yours. We do get white-breasted cormorant here sometimes. Anna-Marie, I think it's mainly because they prefer the flowing water, clean flowing water of the rivers. And so we won't find them so much in these kind of much dirtier spots. Fishing is good here. I've just seen the Egyptian goose grab another fish and eat it. Storks. Yellowbill's just taken off. Here's the fish eagle. There we go. Now everyone will be very careful of that fish eagle. And the babies went straight underneath the mother there. That's amazing. So as that fish eagle came... Oh, isn't that wonderful? That is magnificent. As it came overhead, the goslings leapt for their mother and went underneath her wings. And the yellow-billed stork has flown off. It's decided he doesn't want to be anywhere near that fish eagle. The goslings are a little bit more relaxed now, but they're still keeping close to Mum, and they're getting more into the water now. They've actually gone to Dad, and now following Dad. Still six, isn't it wonderful to see them swimming around like that? It's just really special to spend this kind of time with so many lovely birds. formation going on amongst the marabous. Be fighting over a bit of food. Lots of good fishing going on here. There are lots of small fish as well. Of course, because the water is now becoming concentrated, there's a lot less space for them to be in, so pretty easy fishing. Now, apparently there were 5 hippopotamus yesterday, and you want to know if we've lost one. I can only see 4, but there might be one behind there. Chandra? 4. Yeah, I don't see 5. That's interesting. One of them may have wandered off during the night. And then, of course, as the water dries more and more, so then the little fish will be eaten and the Egyptian geese might have to move on, the smaller storks will disappear, and eventually there will just be food for the kingfishers and the really big storks in the form of catfish. Jamie is at another waterhole now. Let's pop across to her, see what she can tell you, and then I think I'll probably spend a bit more time here. So I'll see you here in just a little while.
We are indeed at another waterhole. We're at the Arathusa Dam, and I'm sure some of you might even have spotted us on the dam camera. Oh, there's a lady. It's the first mammal life I've seen on Arathusa so far, apart from the water mammals. There's a couple of hippo in the dam, but other than that it is very, very quiet. It's interesting to compare the action that's been happening at Buffelshoek Dam to what's happening around Arathusa. There's a couple of birds around. There's always the jacanas moving through. I haven't yet, I think I have just spotted the Egyptian goose family. They are just on the right of that island there. You can see how much bigger these goslings are compared to the tiny ones at Buffelshoek. I'm relieved to hear that all 6 of the goslings at Buffelshoek made it through the night. With that many marabou storks and even the harrier hawk wandering around. How many did we have here again? I think it was 7. Or is it 6 now? Either way, they've definitely made it past the riskiest stage of their lives. Their parents have done very, very well. And they're looking almost the same size as their parents now. Apart from that, I haven't seen any storks, and I have not seen any herons. As I said, it's very quiet. What I'm going to do quickly, if you bear with me one moment, I'm just looking for an example picture for you. Forgotten how the alphabet works, bear with me. Trying to find a nice clear picture of no, it's not in this book. It's in my other bird book, of the differences between the juvenile Egyptian geese and the adult Egyptian geese. This particular book that I have with me doesn't have it. Still, they've done really well to have escaped all of the threats and predators that are out here. You saw with the Egyptian goose family that you're following at Buffelshoek how risky life can be, but these parents have done well to escape all of those threats. I'm trying to work out exactly why it is that the Arathusa Dam is so absolutely quiet at the moment. First of all, it's nice and deep, and because it's cold and windy, the hippos, although they're there, they've actually gone underneath to help from getting to stop them from getting too cold, because otherwise they get that wind chill factor along their backs. It's something that the hippos at Buffelshoek, unfortunately, that option is not open to them. Might also be because it's very open and windy, not as ideal. Hello, hippos. They look more like floating islands of waterweed, water hyacinth, than they do like actual mammals. And every now and again there's a jacana wandering around. I'm trying to find a nice one for you. There was one on the hippo, but they always move through here. There's a bird that you will definitely not see at Buffelshoek Dam. And the reason behind that is there's not enough waterweed coverage for them to run across. What is having a bath at the back there? Just fractionally far away. And that island hippo. Very quiet here. I think since you have spent as much time as you have on or at Buffelshoek Dam, I think it's time for us to carry on and let's see what else we can find in the lands of Arathusa. So far on Arathusa, I've seen one very shy dwarf mongoose and 2 magpie shrikes. It's always interesting, you know when the weather's going to be like this, that you could have your work cut out for you. We know the animals are here, but where they go, I'm not always too sure. I think they go and they hide and they lie down in the bushes to shelter away from the wind. But it's amazing how a place that is bustling with life, and we know somewhere in here it is bustling with life, it all disappears off and hides away for a while. Possibly it's the kind of morning where the animals just don't feel like getting out of bed. Where they look up and they look at the weather and think, actually, no, not at the moment. Maybe in a couple of hours. Family of Egyptian geese, but interesting point from Steve. He was saying that he gets Egyptian geese that let's start that whole sentence again. Steve tells me that there are Egyptian geese in Southern California where he has spent time. And the Egyptian geese, I actually think, are probably one of the most, if not the most, widely distributed bird or goose in the world. They range all over the place. I've seen them in the UK before. They spread into the cities. They're very, very adaptable. I know I've mentioned the Egyptian goose family that my dad's been following outside of his office for years now. They're very well adapted. I think I've told the story before of this incredible moment that happened in Johannesburg. Now, Johannesburg's a big city, and as a big city, it carries the usual big city hustle and bustle. People are busy, people are rushing around. There's a series of huge motorways. Just stop and have a look at the guinea fowl for a moment. There's a huge motorway that runs around the outside of Johannesburg, and there was a news story that broke that an Egyptian goose family was trying to cross it, and everybody on the highway or the motorway stopped their cars, or at least slowed down, and created a safe barrier so that they could move across the highway on both sides. And I mean, that's a 5-lane motorway. I love guinea fowl. They are so pretty. That one managed to get his foot slightly stuck in the dung for a moment. And those spots, those white spots on the black feathers, they actually almost create an optical illusion. I don't know if maybe it's just me seeing it. Maybe I should have had an earlier night, but the spots almost seem to move of their own accord. They're probably a very useful way of acting as disruptive camouflage to keep them hidden. Or not hidden, but to break up their outline. You can hear one in the distance. I'm going to be quiet for one moment. Oh, it stopped calling as I said that. So the sound that you heard and it's something that's very commonly used. I'm glad you can hear it now. It's something that's commonly used between guides. If you're trying to communicate in the bush, you want to talk to the other guide, you want to talk to the other person, and you want to get their attention, but you don't want to shout, hey, or something like that. And a good way to get their attention is to imitate a bird whistle, and it's something a lot of walking guides have been trained to do, myself included. And we had a really interesting incident back when I was training, as our guinea fowl disappear off, where our trainer disappeared off the vehicle to go track lions, and he found them. And at that stage, it was who would it have been? It was a pair of females, a pair of sisters known as the Tembi females. The Tembi females had been brought into the reserve to help with the lion genetics and the lion population. And for quite a few years, they were, I wouldn't say unpleasant, they were just quite cross when they saw people on foot. Hello, waterbuck. Let's try and get a nice view. Anyway, end of that story before we chat about the waterbuck was the trainer found the lions. He'd left us in the car. They were growling at him. We couldn't hear it. And he was desperately imitating the guinea fowl whistle, but he did it so well that we thought it was an actual guinea fowl. We left him to have to back out of the lion sighting on his own, which he managed. Hello, waterbuck. I thought I smelt them earlier. That distinctive, musky, damp smell that they always carry. And really, it's only on days like today when that coat looks quite enviable. I would not have wanted to be a waterbuck in the last few days, considering the temperatures we've had. They're going to come out nicely across the road. Shuffle. No, hold on. I was going to go forward a little bit. I might be imagining it, but what I said earlier about the fact that the animals rolled over in bed this morning and went, nope, Chris Rogue, I think you're right, they all hit the snooze button. And I might be imagining the slightly sleepy look in these waterbuck eyes, but I wonder if they've only just managed to stir themselves as well. There's actually quite a bit of affection going on in this herd. Lots of physical contact every now and again. And quite a nice big herd as well. We know these waterbuck. I'm sure that you've seen them before. They live around the Arathusa Dam. Ooh, trot trot. Don't leave me behind. These are probably the same waterbuck that you saw chasing the wild dog just a few days ago on the Arathusa Dam camera. Definitely very gutsy little creatures when they want to be. They're all staring off in one direction that isn't our direction, but I think that's just to double check which way they're going. There's that smell, just hit me. Morning, ladies. And of course, as always, the distinctive white rings. Tails all wagging furiously. And I personally think that waterbuck are probably one of the top, most attractive antelope that we get out here. Just have the most extraordinary faces. And the fluffy fur really adds something. Our waterbuck herd slowly making their way across. Now, I did pop onto Arethusa just to see if we could get any updates on the lion activity, but Dion, who's watching all the way from New York, you were wondering if we had any updates on the 2 Birmingham boys that were with the female yesterday. I have not heard anything, but we're still listening very closely. We're waiting for that update. Last we knew, they'd actually all settled down. They were no longer chasing that poor girl round and round and round the dam. They were lying down, they'd settled down, and obviously the Birmingham boys together had eased out their differences and worked out who was going to have a chance to mate with her. In my head, but I think this is supposition more than anything else, we'll just have to wait and see. I definitely saw Blondie. He was definitely involved in that chase, so the oldest Birmingham boy. The second one, I don't know who it was, but I have a strong suspicion, and it's something that's coming through from the other guides as well. It's not just me, and not just the WildEarth presenters, the Arethusa guides and the Nkoro guides. They all seem to be watching very closely to see what Scrapper, also known as Tokolosh by some of the guides here, and they all seem to think that he's developing a very seriously, strongly dominant personality. There are no updates yet, but we'll let you know as soon as we do. The other 2 were in Chitwa when they were last found, and then one not missing in action, I think just following behind the other 2 scuffling Birmingham boys with that female. In terms of wild dogs, so far no luck, but they were really, really close to the boundary of Juma on the Buffelshoek cut line. That was the investing pack. The Sands pack has just emerged this morning. I've been listening to Game Drive channel. They've just emerged this morning quite far south of where we are now. They were in Mala yesterday, and they've done a loop around into Londolozi and around that boundary. They're definitely moving at an incredible pace. It's astounding to think of the distance that those dogs can cover in a day when they want to. And on a nice cool day like today, they're going to be moving. I wanted to show you a cuckoo, but the cuckoo has flown away, unfortunately. Now, Anna Marie, I agree with you. I think the lions must be loving this change in temperature, and I also hope that they pop out and come and join us for our morning safari. They could well do. This morning is still full of opportunities. And speaking of opportunities and surprises around every corner, let us head across and see what James is up to.
So we're still sitting here at Buffelshoek Dam. I have my feet up and reclining and really just loving the activity here of all these magnificent birds that we can see. 4 species of storks, 2 or 3 species of wader. Unfortunately, that sandpiper that I said I'd come back and look for doesn't seem to be here anymore, but we will keep looking around. I think that was RC in the Netherlands who wanted to see the wader. So RC, I haven't forgotten, but we'll keep looking around for that sandpiper that was here, and also the 3-banded plover that was the other side. Now, while we're looking at all of the storks and things, quite interestingly, I read up while you were gone about the goslings and the Egyptian geese and what they eat, because I thought it was a bit odd that they were eating fish. And indeed it is. There's no real record of them actually eating fish. They're normally grazers. They normally eat sort of young grass shoots. They're very common in farmlands. They strip grasses of their seeds as well, and they're known to eat the odd invertebrate, quite a lot of algae and sort of pond scum, if you like. They like to eat that sort of thing, but no mention of them eating anything in the way of fish. And they're the little goslings now. We'll have a quick look at them. They're sitting under mum, and the fish eagle has disappeared. So interesting that they're eating fish, perhaps because they're able to get them now. Very sweet. So Steve in California, you were asking a lot about the fact that you seem to have Egyptian geese where you live. And RC in the Netherlands did a whole lot of research, and apparently Egyptian geese, which is what I thought, are only found naturally occurring south of the Sahara and in the Nile Valley. So they won't go across the desert there. And Steve in California, any birds that occur outside of that area are probably aviary escapees, or they're introduced species. And a bird like this, I suspect, because it can eat a variety of different things, would probably spread quite far and wide and become a bit of a pest in an area that it doesn't have natural predators. So perhaps, I mean, there are many birds like that around the world. You think of the house sparrow, common little house sparrow, that's a European bird. You think of it, what most people just refer to as the starling. European starling, also introduced around the world from Britain and other parts of Europe, and they have become tremendous pests. And our greatest avian pest out here, of course, is the Indian myna, which is a vicious starling-like bird that has taken over huge swathes of sort of, well, they especially like cities, I think. And also feral pigeons. Remember, we get feral pigeons all around the world. They're also an English species. And that saddle-billed stork that you're looking at now just had a very delicious meal of tilapia for breakfast. But it was clearly still hungry. In times of plenty, you do need to eat a lot. And just to keep you posted, the Investec pack of dogs, which is 11 babies and 3 adults, they killed an impala on Buffel's Hook not too long ago, so they're all fine and they're doing okay. And you can see that's the female, of course, that we're looking at. She's got a yellow eye. And now the reason you know that she's the female, or the way you remember it, is that sort of yellow eyeshadow will pretend. The male doesn't have that at all. That's a really nice example of it. Gee whiz. And normally quite nervy birds are the saddle-billed storks. They often don't let us get very close at all. This one seems to be perfectly comfortable. I must say, very, very pleasant here indeed. Unfortunately, Jeandre didn't bring a thermos of coffee for us to drink with some rusks, which would have been delicious, or some bacon sandwiches. Be nice. Bacon and egg roll and some coffee while we do our birding. There's an idea. Oh, Jeandre, quickly. No, very greedy gutsers, these Hammerkorps. Just grabbed a fish and swallowed it immediately. Well, I think we'll spend another 5 minutes or so here, and then we'll head off. Excuse me. Ooh. I'm unable to sneeze quietly. I once tried to block my nose during a sneezing expedition and my eyes popped out. Nasty, nasty, nasty stork. Trying to eat the baby geeses. The fish eagle, by the way, has disappeared, talking of nasty birds that eat other birds, as well as fish, of course. There it is. Thunder, it's going to fly above those monkeys there. That might not be the fish eagle, that's a vulture, I think, actually. Look. Yeah. let's go and see what else we can find. Around the corner there were some elephants shouting, so let's go and see if we can't have a look at them. And then we will make a plan from there, I guess. Scott's also been following a female leopard, and she fortunately has headed north into Buffelshoek. But interestingly, she came along the road that we travelled early this morning, and she was on top of our vehicle tracks, and I think that's probably Karula. That's around about where we last saw her tracks. Right, marvellous time here at the dam. Let's go and see what else Juma has to offer us this morning. Assuming I can start Wendy, of course. Come on, brave girl. There we go. A little bit of a lottery.
As you can see, the weather is still cloudy and windy, and we've made our way onto the Arathusa airstrip. I'm aiming now to head across to the what's it called? Hold on, Buffalo Pan. It's called Buffalo Pan. I wanted to call it Buffelshoek. Made the connection in my head. But it's one of the only other water sources on Arathusa. And can you believe, just a week ago we were around Red Dam when we had Karula and Tingana. If you think back to that sighting, if you were watching, remember how much water there was in Red Dam? They went down, they had a drink. There's nothing. There is absolutely no water left in Red Dam. The mud is dry. Just from a couple of really, really hot and windy days, that evaporation effect is phenomenal. I think it might be a bit too windy. Usually the animals love to come around this area because it's nice and open. So which means they can see far into the distance and they can keep an eye on any predators. I think even the warthogs are hiding this morning. There's a family of them, ooh, it's windy. There's a family of them that utilize this termite mound. It looks like they're also staying in bed, hiding away in their holes. Let's see if this little thing wants to come out. Cool. I'm just gonna see if that head pops out of the hole. There was a little dwarf mongoose that ran in there and popped itself in there. Let's just wait and give it a moment to see if curiosity takes hold. But we were chatting about the water holes, and Kathy, watching in Memphis, Tennessee. Kathy, you wanted to know if there's any rain forecast. I believe there is sometime in the next few weeks. We should be getting it soon. I hope we do. That being said, there's a lot of predictions about the fact that we are going to be facing a drought. Hey, little mongoose, you're not going to come and join us? Nope. Going to be shy. I promise you there was an animal there. There was a mongoose in there. I definitely saw it run into that hole. I did, hey Brian. I'm not going crazy. In terms of rain, I mean, this looks like it feels like it should come through. Nope, no mongoose. Bye then. Obviously feeling a little bit camera shy. I'm cruising around on the boundaries of Mr. Tingana's territory. Tingana is the big dominant male leopard in this area. Lynn, you and me both. I still haven't seen the Anderson male either. I'm dying to see him. Oh, that is chilly. I have heard tales about the Anderson male. He's a big male leopard who's right on the boundary with Tingana, and I think they've had one or two confrontations and a little bit of testing each other. It appears at the moment that they've drawn a line in the sand, almost literally, in the drainage line around on the western boundary of Arethusa that I've heard that the Anderson male is absolutely enormous in terms of size. I know a lot of comparisons have been made with him and some of the larger leopards in the Londolozi history. We'll just have to hope that one day he makes an appearance. And to be honest, Lynn, that's one of the reasons why I'm cruising around this area, trying to see if I can pick up any tracks or any sign that he's been wandering around. Now, theoretically, not theoretically, definitely, about 3 days ago, Tingana was seen mating with Shadow just across there over our boundary. And we did get to see him on a termite mound. He'd managed to escape the attentions of Shadow for the moment, and he'd found a nice place to hide away from her. They could also well be in this area. Mating leopards in general don't necessarily cover all that much ground. Oh wow. Okay. Remember when I said that this had plenty of water? It was the only other water source here. It doesn't have any more water. That is actually quite scary. We were here on, what day is it today? I think it's Thursday. We were here on Sunday, and there was plenty of water. I remember remarking on being surprised at that. There isn't any more. And that essentially leaves the Arethusa Dam as probably the only water source on Arethusa. That's quite terrifying. That pan had plenty of water. It was actually quite deep, and it's gone. Okay. Well, that changes the game plan a little bit. We appear to have encountered a number of safari vehicles. I wonder if there's something happening around here that I've missed out on. Let's find out quickly, and then I will continue on to the conversation of what's happening in this area. How's it? How are you?
Fine, thanks.
Good. Any updates from this side?
We've got buffaloes in here.
In that side?
Yeah, just on the central Nyala. There were types of the lions that they took us busy tracking.
Woohoo! That's exciting news.
They went north around the buffalo. So they're moving back to the buffalo. Only the tracks though, not
All right.
signs of it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sharp.
That's it, yeah.
That's it from this side. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Cheers, guys. Some interesting news. So, there's a herd of buffalo moving just in this area over there, which admittedly was where we were going to go next. And there are tracks of lions following them. So it's a big herd, big breeding herd of buffalo. And as many of our regular viewers will know, the lions love to follow behind breeding herds of buffalo, always looking for an opportunity to make a kill. And on days like today, it's perfect weather for it. It's nice and cool, although the sun's just finally broken out of the clouds. But I think let's go and see what's happening with that herd of buffalo and see if those lions are moving around the outskirts of them. I wonder which lions it could be. We know where the Birmingham boys were. Not impossible that they covered a distance of, I suppose, about 10 kilometers, entirely within their means to have done that last night. But it could also be the Tsalalas, and that would be amazing to be able to follow up on them and hopefully see reunited once again. While we slowly make our way up along this road to see if we can spot any lions or buffalo, should be able to spot the buffalo fairly easily. And an interesting question from Sharon in Pittsburgh. Sharon, you've heard that there are types of fish that will help remove the ticks from hippos, and you're wondering whether or not that happens at Djuma and Arethusa. And yes, there will definitely be fish that will head across or head around, cluster around the hippopotamus and remove bits of dead skin, any kind of, in much the same way that you get fish in the ocean that help to clean sharks and whales. They will hang around. It's probably be the tilapia, I think, would be one of the main ones that cluster around them. And it's interesting how delicate that whole ecosystem is. And I know in parts of Africa they've had a problem with a huge increase in mosquitoes, and then obviously malaria, since mosquitoes are the vector of it. And eventually scientists pinpointed it down to the fact that people had actually killed a lot of the big crocodiles for their skins and for their meat. And as a result, the crocodiles were not eating the catfish. The catfish were then flourishing in large numbers and then eating all of the tilapia. So there were no more tilapia. Tilapia are little tiny fish, and they feed on mosquito larvae. It came back in a long loop to be connected to the decline of crocodiles in the water. Hello, everyone. The animals are starting to come out. They've run out of snooze options on their alarms. Tiny little male steenbok. I love watching them move through the vegetation. They're so delicate. Stopping to have a quick scratch and a nibble. Very sweet. And that little tail and enormous eyes. Never fail to be impressed by the size of the eyes of a steenbok. And I suppose when you're that big, it pays to be able to see very, very well in case something is coming to try and eat you. Okay. I think our steenbok's going to disappear, and we have buffalo and lions to follow up on. Let's go and see what we can find up Central Road. Now, as far as I know, there were no buffalo seen on the Arathusa Dam camera last night or yesterday, which means they're coming that way, or there's a good chance that they're going that way for a drink. So keep your eyes peeled this afternoon. In the hottest time of the day, there's a good chance you're going to see an enormous herd of buffalo coming across. Guys, I got distracted by the Game Drive channel. Now we're going to start heading across towards the buffalo, and in the meantime let's see what James is up to on his side.
So from tracking the exciting prospect of buffalo herds being chased by lions, we have got you Nyala. A very large herd of Nyala, well, they certainly were quite a large herd. They've now melted a bit into the bush. But very beautiful antelope in what is now some very stunning light. The sun breaking through the clouds, probably not so much breaking through as baking through. I think it's definitely managing to burn away some of those clouds. And in the gorgeous golden light, you can see some Nyala, some youngsters and some cows. Other thing that you can hear as the sun comes out, these birds love the sun. That's the white-browed scrub robin, and you might be able to hear them calling in the background. And what it's doing, this white-browed scrub robin, if that is what it is, I'm pretty sure it is that it's imitating some other birds. It's doing a rattling testicular quite badly, and various other birds. There you can hear it going. I say most likely a white-browed scrub robin, but they're not normally very good mimics. And I wonder if it isn't a Sabota lark. Now it's doing all sorts of rattling testicular calls, but it's definitely not a rattling testicular calling. Very peaceful out here, I must say. Nice breeze. We're not going to complain about that at all, given the heat that we've had over the last little while. And I'm sure you'll find that those Nyala cows, the mature ones, will be just about ready to drop their next load of lambs or calves. Now, often it might be a little bit confusing to you if you're not used to this sort of terminology, but we talk about calves and lambs and ewes and cows and bulls and rams, and it's all got to do with the sort of size of the animals, fairly arbitrary size differential. But basically, when you get to Nyala size, you have a Nyala bull and a Nyala, I've heard them referred to as ewes and cows, but anything smaller than a Nyala is going to be a ewe and a ram, and anything larger than a Nyala is going to be a bull and a cow, and then it'll be a calf for the youngster, and then a lamb for anything smaller than a Nyala. Right, let us press on. I did not come across those elephants that we heard calling from the dam earlier, but we are ever hopeful, ever hopeful. It is just amazing. As soon as that sun touches you, you really do feel an escalation of temperature that is quite intimidating when you consider what the midday is going to be like out here. Whew. Apparently we are expecting a bit of rain on the weekend, which will be marvellous. So we were sitting at that waterhole earlier. This is Nyala City out here. There's another little herd down there, and there's a lamb or a calf with a bull. And while we're looking at them, Christopher in Arizona, you were asking about water. We were sitting at the dam there, and you say, did the landowners of Arethusa and Juma ever dig out holes that collect water? They do, Christopher. That dam there is an artificial water point. There's a whole wall that's been built up to collect the water. So absolutely, there are 3 or 4 just on Juma alone. All the Buffelshoek landowners, there are about 74 of them, I think. No, not quite that many, but all of them have private homes there, and their private homes have all got little dams in front of them. So, yeah, lots and lots of artificial, well, not artificial so much as well, they are artificial really, man-made water holes, if you like. There's a beautiful Nyala bull. And most of our water does come from what we call boreholes. And Derek, you're asking about wells. I think you mean the same sort of thing. A borehole is a deep hole in the ground out of which water is pumped. And over here we call them boreholes. And I think that's exactly what you mean with wells. And that's where all the water comes from for our camps and our lodges. And then some of the water that gets pumped into the pans will come from boreholes. In fact, all of it. If there is any pumping of water into the pans, it will come from wells or boreholes. So there's no other kind of there's no main water supply here other than from boreholes. Right, that's a little fork-tailed drongo, you can see, little black bird following gently along with the Nyala. Right. So Jamie has found one half of what she said she was going to find you. Maybe the other half will come along. A herd of buffalo. We'll head across to those, and I'll continue my quest for whatever it is that might be around the corner here.
And the half of what I said I would find consists of probably a herd of about 400 buffalo, very vocally mooing away all around us. Oh, yes, hello. And that, of course, is a sound that will attract every lion's attention in the area And we, never fear, we will be heading across towards those lines when we have a chance. We're just letting some of the other vehicles head across first. The first thing that strikes me is about these buffalo is that some of them are actually looking very thin. And I think they're really starting to feel the impact of the drought quite significantly. And quite a few hip bones sticking out, some ribs sticking out. And for buffalo that are bulk grazers, if the grass quality declines, life becomes very, very difficult. I'm hoping this female is going to move forward and bring her little calf out with her. Lots of little babies. And the lions have been following behind this herd, hoping to find a way to monopolize on the bounty that this is for them. Not sure which lions they are. We're going to have to wait and see and find out when we get there. And the buffalo herd is not quiet. They are all calling. Quite a few babies at the back. I'm going to try and shift forward a little bit. Just bear with me one moment. Somebody's trying to call me on the radio. Sorry guys, bear with me while I shift forward and just listen to the happenings on the Game Drive channel. Make sure we don't miss our chance to go and see those lions. Station who is calling Jamie, go ahead. Copy that, thank you. Look at that little one, only a couple of months old. And this particular calf is looking very healthy. Nice and round. And imagine the confusion of being a young calf moving around in these huge herds. It's so important for them to know where their mothers are. And a lot of those calls that we hear are between mothers and calves trying to relocate each other in the confusion. Because even though this little one is still grazing, still feeding, he's still dependent on his mother, or her mother, sorry, it is a she, still completely dependent on her mother for milk. And there you go, look at the buffalo supplementing their diet. Ooh, that's an old looking lady, and that skin infection around her face is quite possibly mange. She's even got a slightly crooked horn. And the buffalo, because there's not much grass cover and not much in the way of nutrients from it, they've actually switched, and a lot of them are browsing from the trees. That's not unusual to see. We do see them browsing, but for the most part they are bulk grazers and far more reliant on grass. They just have to supplement at the moment. Shuffle forward again. Let's see if we can get a nice view of the rest of the herd coming through. This is a huge herd. Because it's so thick in here, and because there's so little grass, they're quite spread out, which again makes life much easier for a lion looking for a piece of luck. Good morning, buffalo. Be careful, there's lions about. I'm curious to see who these particular lions are. I'm not sure if you guys have any guesses. I'm trying to work it out. I will tell you that there are definitely females there. Beyond that, I'm not too sure. Let's see if we can guess who it might be. Now send your answers through to #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email them through to questions@wildearth.tv. and you are as much in the dark as I am at this point. There's the sun starting to come out, provide a little bit of warmth on a cool and cloudy day. Interestingly, because it's been so cool and cloudy, I actually haven't seen that many oxpeckers flying around. They're around, you might hear the zipping sound that they make, but for the most part they're free of oxpeckers. I think the cool and cloudy weather actually contributed to the fact that they're not around. It's windy, it's cloudy, they've taken a little bit longer to get airborne and to come and find a source of prey. In this case, the ticks all over the buffalo herd. And yes, I said it was an enormous herd. Barbara, I did say 400. That is a guess beyond guesses, if I'm completely honest. I know this is a huge herd. I can hear them all around us. And I'm just trying to play with numbers a little bit. It could be more. I don't think it's less. Have a look and watch the Arathusa Dam camera if they do, or if we get a chance to see them out in the open. Then we will be able to double check and see exactly, well, no, not exactly, unless you have the patience to count 400 buffalo. But we'll definitely be able to get a better idea of numbers when they do move out into the open. Hello, little boy. Very, very young sub-adult male. Now, it's not just the lions that favor buffalo as a potential meal. Mo, in answer to your question, yes, people in this area will eat buffalo. Not within the Sabi Sands, obviously, because all of the animals out here are protected and would be poaching to go and feed on them. But yes, people do eat buffalo. They also wouldn't want to be taking buffalo meat from around the Kruger because of the incredible contagiousness. Is that a word? Is contagiousness a word? I'm not sure. Hold on. Either way, the buffalo within Kruger are all carriers of tuberculosis and quite often foot and mouth disease as well. So buffalo that are utilized as a food source are very carefully controlled, and they will be taken from disease-free stock. But for the most part, Mo, I wouldn't say that it's a popular food source, and the reason why is that disease-free buffalo, so buffalo that are available as an option as a food source, they tend to be worth an incredible amount of money because of the amount of time and effort that's gone into breeding and creating a stock that is free from disease. And there's a long story behind it, but essentially one of the only disease-free populations came from the Eastern Cape a couple of decades ago, and they've been slowly bred up into a viable population. And at the same time, there is a program to make sure that there's a bit of genetic diversity. They make sure that they get a couple of disease-free calves from other areas and breed them up. The end result is that in certain circles, buffalo are almost invested in, disease-free buffalo are almost invested in, like, they're essentially almost farmed. And when I say they're worth a lot of money, a disease-free female, a young female, maybe not even of breeding age yet, is probably somewhere in the region of R500,000 rand. I'm not even sure what that is in our exchange rate anymore. And I know that a couple of breeding bulls have sold for an enormous amount. All right, Buffs, don't stress. I mentioned that female we were seeing is quite an old female. Yes, hello. And Dee, you were wondering what a lifespan is of a buffalo. You're looking at somewhere in the region for the old males of around 15 years. You might get the exceptional cases of a little bit older, but for the most part, I would say the average is between 10 and 15 years. That's in the wild, of course. As always, you'll get animals that live slightly longer in captivity. This is actually the tail end of the herd, which means I'm going to have to do some shuffling around and repositioning. But in the meantime, it sounds as though James has found an interesting bug to draw your attention to. Let's head across and have a look at that. I will be back with you with the buffalo in just a few moments.
So from the astonishment of a buffalo herd down to the slightly ridiculous sight of a grub or caterpillar that is living in a tamboti seed. Now, earlier on in the year, you may have seen Brent and I showed a couple of times these tamboti seeds with jumping, they look like jumping beans. And they leap around because of the presence of this moth caterpillar inside. And it's called Emporia melanobasis, as far as I can remember. And this fat little grub has eaten out the insides of this tamboti seed, and I think will probably pupate very soon and then become a small moth after that pupation process has taken place. But a really nice sort of custard-coloured little caterpillar. I'll try and pull him out completely. Come on, get out. There we go. There you can see he's actually attached by a bit of silk, so probably about to pupate. Isn't that lovely? And it's that caterpillar doing sort of flick-flacks inside the seed that makes them jump. And it's of the tamboti tree. And the tamboti tree, of course, is highly toxic to human beings and many other animals. And so we won't be having a bite of this grub. And I suspect that they probably imbibe quite a lot of the toxins in the tamboti, and that probably helps them, rather like a lot of the milkweed-eating moths and caterpillars. Probably as adults are quite toxic to predators. Right, stunning little picture of this grub. Okay, so I think now that you've had a look at this tiny little worm, we'll take you back to the slightly more impressive herd of 400 buffalo with Jamie, and we'll see what other little wonders we can find along this road.
Slowly tucking itself away into the bush. Hold on one moment, we'll get you a nice view of them. I don't want to scare this lot. They've got that look about them like they might go sprinting away from me. Hello guys. Yes, sorry. That big girl. Lots of heads watching me. And I think that you'll probably find that these buffalo have spent quite a hard night. The lions have probably been pursuing them all evening. It would have been windy last night. It would have been pitch black because of the clouds, which is ideal hunting conditions for lions. And many of our regular viewers have accompanied us on hunting efforts at night with lions and herds of buffalo, and it's a very dramatic experience. The lions push forward, the buffalo push back, and it's incredibly stressful for the buffalo herd concerned, and the lions, of course, who are looking for a meal that doesn't involve kicking and being caught by their horns. And buffalo are not defenseless by any means. They come equipped with some serious weaponry and serious bulk. We are approaching the tail end of this herd, but I'm going to shift forward. There goes the run. Shift forward one more time so we can get a clear view. I don't understand, flies. There's a whole herd of buffalo to go and sit on, and they all want to cluster around my nose. I don't understand. Shifting around through, just trying to find a nice open gap for us. Hello, big girl. Nice mature buffalo cow. watching us down the top of her nose and making it very clear exactly what she thinks about us. Wow. Just thinking about some of the numbers of the costs of disease-free buffalo, you're looking at an average from 2013, having had that chat with you about how much money they're worth. 2013, the average was somewhere in the region of about 870,000 Rand. That's huge. The record for the most impressive male was 40 million Rand. 40 million Rand for one animal who was then used as a stud bull. And then for a female and a calf was 19.5 million. Now that's of course all in Rands. Please excuse me if I can't quite convert. I don't even want to know what the exchange rate is at the moment. Either way, it is a phenomenal amount of money. Thank you, Edward, for doing a little bit in the way of conversions. So 500,000 Rand converts to about $35,000 at the moment. Still enormous. Sorry guys, bear with me one moment. I just want to, I think we've finally got our spot at the lions. I just want to double check. Copy that, thank you. What is the exact lock of those Ngala? Copy that, thank you. I'll make my way in now. Okie dokie. Well, let's go and figure out where this lion is hiding. It seems as though she's just a little bit further that way. Let's see if we can figure it out. My instructions were very specific. They consisted of follow the road until you see our tracks going off-road, which I think is pretty much self-explanatory. Let's go find them. You are guessing that it is the Unkuhumas. That is a distinct possibility, and I'm glad that I've got some packing that we will find them. We will find them. It's just a matter of figuring this out quickly. There's lots of fresh tracks along this road. Alright, well, we'll keep our eyes peeled, and then we'll find out who these lions really are. I'm going to make my way across towards this elephant sighting. Elephant? Where did that come from? Lion sighting. And I've spotted someone who can give me directions. So let's do a quick pop across to James, see what he's found, and I will be back with you very shortly.
Right, just before you go to the really exciting part of the day, look at this special little fellow. I can't find him in the book, so I'm going to dub him the boxing mantid. Look at him, he's a praying mantis. Watch how he follows my finger around, and now if I can try and make him, he was trying to sort of punch me earlier. There we go. Isn't that amazing? Poor little fellow, and he's only got one feeler left. His other one's been bitten off or fallen off. So the praying mantises, for those of you who don't know, are a predatory group of insects, and they will find other insects to eat. And on the inner side of this little boxing gloves that he's got here are spines that they will use to catch their prey with, very spiky things. And on a big praying mantis, they can draw blood if they want to. But this little chap is not a particular threat to human beings. But you can see as he extends forward there, you might be able to see the kind of hooks on the front of the boxing gloves, and that's what he uses to catch his prey. No toxins, and they normally just sort of bite and then suck out the insides. Isn't that spectacular? I wish I knew a bit more about them. They will lay eggs, of course, as will all, and they can fly. This one, I don't know why this one hasn't flown away yet, but they can certainly fly now. He's just punching forward in a sort of threat display. And then they make a very distinctive egg sac called an uthika, and that egg sac is a sort of silken, quite hard but silky casing that they hang in trees, and very distinctive and easy to find. And unlike many of the insects, they don't make larvae. So when they're born, they sort of resemble the adults, and then they molt. Look at that. Can you see that, Chandra? Cleaning the feeler. Running the feeler all the way through the jaws to clean it. So even the insects are concerned about how they look. In fact, your common garden variety cockroach will do the same thing. Oh, and there's the... Just a question from Jennifer in Toronto that I'm not sure if I've heard correctly. I'm just going to ask, before I make a horrible mistake, I'm going to get the question again for you from Jennifer. Do caterpillars have sex? Thank you, Jennifer, for that question. Caterpillars don't, in fact, have sex, and that is because caterpillars are the larval stage of moths and butterflies, so they can't breed. Only the adults have sex, and they then will lay eggs. And so I'm sure you've seen butterflies attached at the bottom. They attach themselves at the bottom like that, and they transfer. The male will transfer sperm to the female, and she will then lay eggs, which will hatch to become caterpillars, which will not have sex until they are adults. And talking of that kind of thing, praying mantises, of course, are well known after they have had sex for the females eating the males. So once he is lying in bliss after the conjugal affair, so the female will then eat the male, which is not a particularly attractive trait of a female praying mantis. He's still punching something. Look at that, isn't that amazing? And Marilyn in California, I sympathize with you. You say that you like this new friend of mine and he's making you quite like bugs. Well, I quite agree. When I got to the bush, I didn't want anything to do with these creepy things, but now I find them absolutely fascinating, especially the boxing variety of praying mantis. And I might actually, I'm not much of a fighter myself, but in terms of a boxing match, I think I could probably beat this mantis, mainly with just a, I don't think we'll do that to him though. So they are, the insects are absolutely astonishing, because you see he's heated up now. You see that, John Ray? He's been sitting in the sun now for a while, and now he's becoming a lot more active, a lot more able to move with speed. I'm just going to move him back towards the middle. we go. Still punching wildly at anything that threatens him. The insects are an amazing group. They're the most numerous group of animals in the world. There are lots and lots of different orders of insects, and that's, I mean, I don't know how clued up you are on taxonomy, but for example, there will be thousands of mantis species in the world. And so a field guide, for example, like the one I've got, the chances of finding this exact species is almost negligible, but you can probably get it down to kind of a generic level. It's probably what we call a bark mantid, if I'm not horribly mistaken, but there will be lots and lots of different kinds of bark mantids. And every so often you can see he cleans off his feelers. You might even be able to see his... I'm not sure that he has a tongue, but cleaning the face now. Right, now, if you watch there carefully how he cleaned his face, in much the same way as a cat would, I think rather than this boxing mantis cleaning its face, let's go along and look at some real cats, real predators with Jamie. See you later.
And we have arrived with two mystery females and their buffalo kill, or what's left of their buffalo calf kill. Obviously it was a difficult night or a difficult morning for the buffalo herd. And at the moment it is incredibly hotly debated amongst the guides on the radio as to who these lions actually are and where they've come from. There's two options floating around at the moment. One is 6 females. The other is 2 females from the Tsalala Breakaway group, I believe. In that case, they would be lionesses that we've never seen before. Here's the other one hiding behind the bush. We will reposition in a moment so that you can have a look at her as well. Just gonna shift it around. The 2 of them must have been very hungry. They've finished off most of that. And she's dragging it into a safer spot underneath the weeping wattle. What do you think, guys? I defer to your judgment. Take lots of screenshots and let's see if we can figure out who she is. Of course, we're looking for those characteristic whisker spot patterns, different on every single lion. And the back of her neck, to me, looks very scruffy. Almost like she's been mating with a male. I'm sure I see bite marks and scuff marks around there. Could be from a hunt, but it looks more to me like teeth marks. She's making sure she gets the most out of that, what's left of that little buffalo. I wonder who it could be. If it is the Tsalala Breakaways, then they've spent time with the Matimba males in the past. I hear that they have been mating with them over the last few weeks, so that could be where those bite marks come from. If it is a Styx female, it could be one of the Styx females that was mating with one of the Birminghams. A mystery that we need to solve.
Quite a challenge for 2 lionesses to get out of a
This, what's left of this buffalo tells me, I can see a little bit of a horn sticking out. That tells me it was a very young or fairly young calf. And Dee, you were wondering if the older animals or the younger animals are the ones that make for easy prey for lions or leopards. It's unlikely a leopard's going to tackle or take on a buffalo herd. But in terms of easy prey, the lions are more likely to go for either calves or the older buffalo. I would say in terms of numbers, statistically, you'll probably find that calves are the ones that are most hit. But again, that depends on the pride. So even an old buffalo that's fully grown can put up a serious fight against lions. So for 2 lionesses on their own, it makes more sense for them to target a calf and dodge the defensive actions of the mother rather than try to take down a full-grown buffalo. If they had males present with them when they were hunting, then they tend to go for the larger, and yes, it may be the older animals because they'll be slightly slower, possibly even moving at the back of the group. And I wondered why there was a smell wafting over me. I've just realized I parked next to the first result of her big meal. You spotted from there, Brian. Things you want to avoid in a lion sighting, that is what quite often happens when the lion eats the rich organs, so the livers and the kidneys. Yes, definitely avoid at all costs. Do not drive over. Somehow somebody's had a very lucky escape because that tire track goes right along the edge. Definitely to be dodged. Please let me not drive through that on my way out. I've got to remember. Yeah, I think Brian would be terribly upset with me if I did that. Don't worry, Brian. Just give me a casual reminder if the wheel starts to stray. We're crunching away on some of the smaller rib bones. I think that's what she's got there. She's got a rib. The lions don't have the same crushing power that hyenas do, but they will gnaw away at the smaller bones and quite often take away the edge pieces of it to get good access at whatever calcium and nutrients they can get out of it. I don't think I've ever seen this lioness before, but I could be wrong. Let's see how old she might be. To me, she looks like a fairly old lioness. The other one looked quite young. I'm going to shift around and have a look when we have an opportunity. Just see who the younger one might be as well. How amazing is this? We could be looking at lions that we've never seen before, or at least I've never seen before. I'm sure for regular viewers, these two have popped onto the screen once or twice. And we're very close to the southern boundary of Arethusa, or fairly close to the southern boundary of Arethusa. It's entirely plausible. This is the area that the Tsalalas first moved through when they started pushing back up into this area. And it could be that these two females have done a very similar thing. I did hear an update from some of the guides in the area that the females of the Tsalala Breakaway group were seen looking very thin near the Matimba males, and it appeared as though the Matimba males had been essentially hogging all access to prey. That generally happens with male lions. They get the lion's share. That's where the expression comes from. They're 100 kilograms bigger than the female, so they can throw their weight around very effectively and push them off the kill and get the most access to the meat and the best parts of it, which might explain why these lionesses have actually moved up into Arethusa, if it is them, to have a chance. They've probably followed the buffalo herd up here. It gives them a chance to enjoy the spoils without being interrupted by one of the Matimba males. Interesting that we've got some differing opinions as to who this might be. And there's a suggestion from Power Funk Radio that this lioness looks like a Styx female. There's also somebody who suggested that it is the amber-eyed female from the Nkulumo Pride. Teresa, I'm honestly not sure. She does have very amber eyes. That being said, one of the Styx females also has very amber eyes. It could be either of those. I can hear a squirrel shouting away. I think it's probably in response to a bird of prey. She's enjoying whatever mouthful she got there. How's it? How are you?
Yeah, good on you.
Good, thanks. Any idea which lionesses?
It's Tsalala.
Tsalalas, the Tsalala Breakaways.
No, Tsalalas.
The Tsalalas. Sharp, thank you.
Why does it see the sticks?
Yeah. No, they were with the Birmingham boys. We seem to have an answer to our question as to who these two lionesses are. And the prevailing opinion at the moment is that they are the Tsalalas. So, two of the Tsalala females that I certainly have never seen before. Which makes the explanation that they've pushed up away from the Matimbas entirely plausible. I'm going to, once she's had a couple more mouthfuls, I'm going to shift around so that we can see the younger lioness. She's quite a big lioness. She's got quite a broad and large face and big jaw. And she is actually, now that I think about it, but I mean this is supposition, it's almost reminiscent of the genetic line of the Tsalalas. The tailless lioness. And something similar, but it might be my imagination. Oh, there's a hyena moving on the outside, quite far on the outside. I'm not sure if Brian's going to be able to get a view. A hyena moving around the outskirts, waiting, I think, for an opportunity for when these lionesses leave their kill. Sorry, Brian, I can't see it anymore. It's somewhere just cruising around the outskirts, waiting for its chance to come and join us. Now, two lionesses are more than a match for one hyena. They would not be able to push, a hyena would not be able to push these two off. But if it were to recruit more individuals from the clan to come and help, then there's a good chance that they could chase the two lionesses away. And that's where having a male around, or male lion around, can be incredibly useful as a defense mechanism. I'll wait and see if that hyena pops back into view. You never know. It might be hungry, it might decide that it's worth the risk. And I think let's shift around and change our view, and maybe we can have a look at the younger female who's with this lioness. I've very carefully backed out of my position, and Lenny, you were a little bit confused as to what I was pointing out as the smelly thing behind, or next to my wheel. Hello, girl. It's all right. It's okay. Bless you. Stop here because we've got it's not the clearest view. I just wanted to settle down a little bit and get used to the idea of us being around her. She did sit up. She's actually not that young. Sorry, Lenny. In answer to your question, what was so smelly? When lions first feed on a kill, they feed on the richest parts of the organs. The ones that are very rich in iron. What that typically does is that gives them diarrhea almost straight away. And that was the result. It was poo, or I even hesitate to call it lion scat. Oh, I think that other vehicle's on its way to meeting it. Oh well, I'm going to have some smelly tires. But if you drive through lion scat or lion poo, you're going to be smelling it for a long time. And I'm not talking just maybe a couple of minutes after you've left. I'm talking the rest of the week. And nobody's going to want to drive your vehicle. Nobody's going to thank you for it. Generally, just in terms of things you don't want to do, it's quite high on the list. It also scares away other animals in the area. Very much worth paying attention to what's known in the industry as landmines. And usually you find them around a buffalo kill or a lion kill. They tend to deposit the end results of their digestive process all around. And it's so easy to forget. It's something that new guides do a lot. And I say new guides, I did it the other day, so I can't really judge. But you're so busy looking at what's happening with the lions, trying to figure the whole sighting out and figure out your best route, that you forget to check where you're driving. Hugely, hugely unpleasant smell. I don't think I need to describe it. I'm pretty sure I can leave it to your imagination. Let me know if you want any further descriptions. But I'm pretty sure you get the idea. And lions, just in general, actually, are not the most pleasant smelling of creatures. They're not the sort of, they don't carry with them the sort of scent that makes you want to go and cuddle them. That combination of rotting meat smell that hangs perpetually around them.
They would eat most of the organs.
And they're also heavily parasite-ridden.
Stomach contents.
You don't want to go and put your hand anywhere near I suppose that goes without saying. You don't want to go and put your bare hand anywhere near a wild lion's mouth. That's pretty obvious, but not just for the risk of having your arm bitten, but also because they carry such high parasite loads. Doesn't bother them though. Animals are so much more resilient than we will ever be. They're capable of eating carcasses that have been sitting out in the sun for days. The female at the back has acquired what would you call it? Not a dressing, but something of a garnish. Thank you, Brian. A garnish of weeping wattle to add to her meal of buffalo. That's exactly the word I was looking for. There you go. Some of us might put a little bit of rocket or something on our meal. She's garnished hers with weeping wattle. I'm not sure what that adds to the taste, but obviously doesn't seem to bother her. Now, as I said, the general consensus appears to be that this is the two Tsalala females. And Joanne, you were wondering if this is a different group to the two females and the three subadult males that we've seen in the past. And the answer is yes. The Tsalala Pride has actually been, in all of the chaos, it has been split up to an extent. So the female without the tail, she fled, bringing the young female and the three subadult males with her. They fled away from the Matimba males because of the danger that the Matimba males posed to her subadult male cubs. And these two stayed behind. They didn't have quite the same threat level. They're both adult females. They were both then will have instantly come into false estrus to placate the Matimba males and then have mated with them. They won't be pregnant just yet because in any kind of pride takeover situation, the lioness's body responds, as I said, by going into a false estrus. And that's a way of making sure that they don't invest time and energy in producing males' offspring, and then the males just get kicked out because they haven't been firmly established enough yet. It's quite a complicated system. It is very common for lion prides to split during a takeover, which is essentially what happens. In this case, it was a takeover by the Matimba males. And they split away. It's usually the adults with sub-adult or cubs of a younger age that are still at huge risk of infanticide by the incoming males. But instead of following the other two females, they stuck around with the Matimba males, although they've made a quick break in order to enjoy some breakfast on their own. Now, I'm inclined to believe the word of one of the Elephant Plains trackers in his identification of these two as the Tsalalas, because they will have seen them in the past. But Eddie, Abby, you were wondering if it's the lioness that the Birmingham boys were seen mating with? And the answer, I think, is no. And in fact, I'm fairly certain it's no. The Styx lioness that's on Torchwood with them at the moment is almost certainly identified as a Styx lioness. The lioness who was with them a couple of days before that has never been identified, so that is a possibility but unlikely. Now, lionesses are clever, and that's why I say that it's a possibility, because in her area where she's from, the Matimba males are currently in control, but they can't be with the females all the time. And there's a chance that if the Birmingham boys came across the boundary, she might have mated with them in an attempt to placate them and to trick them into believing that any babies that they bear belong to the Birmingham boys or the Matimbas. It's that same technique that we see leopards do. And there's been interesting research carried out. We always think that the pride males that are in control of an area, we always automatically assume them to be the father, but apparently in maybe up to 40% of the cases, the cubs are actually not theirs. They're just tricked into thinking that they are. And that's because the lionesses employ the same technique that female leopards do, and that's to mate with a couple of males in the area. And that means that if their dominant pride members are away, their dominant coalition members are away marking territory and patrolling elsewhere, and a strange male comes along, they've reduced the risk that he might have towards their cubs. It was a slightly convoluted explanation, but I hope you got that from what I was trying to say. Let's try and change our view again, now that that lioness has calmed down. She's resting tucked away in what is essentially a small guarri bush. Doesn't look like it's providing much shade. Well, Blair, it seems as though you agree with me as well that these are the two females from the Tsalala, what are thought of as the Tsalala Breakaways or the Mangeni Pride, or possibly the Styx Pride. I don't think they're Styx females. Most of the Styx are around Chitwa and Torchwood, which is quite far east of here. I would have been surprised if they'd covered that distance in essentially a day. I think it's the two females. There's a bit of confusion between or amongst the guides as to the Tsalalas versus the Tsalala Breakaways, and I'm still trying to get a little bit of clarification on that. But I agree with you, Blair. I think they're Tsalala Breakaways. She seemed to shake her head violently in response to that. Maybe she's trying to tell us something. I'm going to do another circuit, see if we can get a slightly different view. Just switch it up a little bit, especially now that the sun is starting to come out and blaze down on them. Now, I've got a viewer watching from northwest England, and Diana, I think you're quite fortunate in only being 2 hours behind us. I just had a long chat with my brother who lives in Scotland at the moment about the time differences, because for some reason I always forget exactly where he is in time and space. And so I end up texting him very early in the morning. Well, Diana, you wanted to know, you said that since the drama with the takeover, you haven't seen any new cubs. And Diana, I don't think that first of all, I don't think that third Styx cub has survived. It hasn't been seen in weeks. And most of the guides seem to think that the Birmingham boys did get it in the end. In terms of when we can expect new cubs, there was a chance because the Styx, Oh no. Ooh. Sorry, Diana. I'll get back to you in one moment. I think I've done a terrible thing.
You've done an unspeakable thing.
Have I done an unspeakable thing? Oh, Brian, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, I drove through some of the lion diarrhea. That's highly unpleasant. I'm probably not going to be welcome back at camp now. No. Sorry, Brian. Brian might decide to walk home. Oh no, Diane. In terms of when we can expect new cubs, the Styx female. The one thing that throws doubt into my mind is that one of the Styx females was mating with the Matimba male right before that takeover happened, almost to the day of that beginning of the takeover experience. And she could possibly be pregnant, and what she'll do in that case is her body would have gone into false estrus. She would have mated with the Birmingham boys whilst she was still pregnant, as a way of tricking them into thinking that they're the father of those cubs that could come from the Matimba males. That would have happened in around the middle of August. It's now middle of September, middle of October. We would start to have the potential that she's going to have cubs in the next few weeks if that mating was successful and if she got pregnant from it. So in the next few weeks, a Styx female could have cubs, which she would then hide away for another few weeks away from us. You know how lions tuck themselves away in a den. Shame. The flies are driving this poor lioness insane. It's okay though, because she's found a really comfortable way to pillow her head against a guarri bush. For the rest of the females, to finish off with a question, they will go into false estrus almost as soon as the Pride takeover is complete. So they'll have been mating with the Birmingham boys, the Nkuhumas have been mating with them, the Styx have been mating with them. Those most likely will not result in pregnancies because, as I said, female lionesses have evolved a way of not investing the time and energy of producing a litter of cubs before they're certain that the new males are secure in their position. So it'll be another few months before any of the other females bear any cubs. Bless you, lion. Barbara, in order to answer your question, let me just say that having now coated my tire liberally in one of the foulest substances that we have out here, there's a good chance that we may not see any animals. So on this afternoon's drive, you'll be spending most of it on the back of Wendy as a jigger drives around and all of the animals flee within a 500-meter radius. And I certainly wouldn't blame them if they did. I'm exaggerating slightly, but Barbara, yes, the animals do respond to the smell of lion scat on a tire, and they respond with a fear response or a stress response, and will try and move away from it. What you'll find is they'll probably stick their heads up and start looking around them to try and figure out where the lion is. Bear in mind that lions carry a very strong scent, and for the most part the herbivores of this area are used to encountering it. But with it, if it suddenly arrives in the form of a tire, it tends to disturb them because it makes them wonder where the lion is hiding. What I plan to do, if you're wondering about the various techniques of lion scat removal process, I'm going to go and find a deep drainage line and I'm going to drive through it. And hopefully the sand sticking to the particles of scat will help to dislodge. Unfortunately, there's no rivers to drive through, otherwise I'd drive backwards and forwards a couple of times. Eddie Abbey, the next option, of course, if the drainage line system fails, is bleach. It does work, but you'd be surprised at how very thorough you have to be, because if you don't get all of the bits of lion scat that you've placed in the tread of your tires, you're still going to have that smell accompanying you. So yes, bleach is the next option. The next option after that is possibly abandoning the car somewhere in a drainage line and leaving it for a couple of months.
Just burn it.
Burn it. Brian says burn it. Brian says it's the end. Burn the tires. There is no other option. Oh. She's shifting the kill around. She's slightly bigger than the other lioness, and she's trying to find a nice, comfortable position. Apparently there wasn't enough garnish on it before. Pat, you're watching all the way in Washington, and you're trying to figure out exactly how this whole Tsalala issue's working. So we've got the adult female that we've seen regularly without the tail, accompanied by a female that is very young, right on the cusp of being an adult. So let's call her the sub-adult female. Neither of these two are sub-adults. They're both adult females. And as far as I know, that essentially completes the female makeup of the Tsalala Pride at the moment. Unless there is one... No, that should be about right. And then there's the 3 young males who are accompanying their mother around the area. I'll try and shift backwards so that we can at least get a view. Now that she's stuck her head quite thoroughly in the weeping wattle, let's try and see her. I'm just going to liberally recoat my tire. I'm desperately trying to figure out the reason behind namings. Janet, you wanted to know why the ones left behind would be called the breakaways. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Please give me a little bit of time to try and figure it out. I'm going to have to tie some guides down and get some answers from them. I think they are called the Tsalala Breakaways because of a previous breakaway. So they broke away from the Tsalala Pride before this, quite possibly in their own way to defend their cubs. That being said, I need to fully clarify that. When I spoke to one of the trackers now, he said that they were not the Tsalala Breakaways, they were just the Tsalalas. And I'm not sure where that leaves the Tsalala Breakaways, because then I'm not sure who the Tsalala Breakaways are and what their dynamic is. As far as I always understood, the Tsalala Breakaways were 2 females, 2 adult females on their own, which most likely is these 2. Janet, I'm sorry, I can't give you a better answer. Using her paw to really get in there. And we're getting a bit more clarification. Thank you, Blair. Okay. There we go. We've got some sense as clarified by Blair. Okay, let's try this again. The Tsalala Breakaways are a pride of 13 from a previous breakaway during a previous takeover, probably, in my opinion, during the Majingi's time, or the Majingi takeover, the Majingilane male coalition. These 2 are the Tsalalas from the main pride, as are the others that we've seen with the sub-adult males, but they've moved away to try and escape the Matimbas, leaving only these 2 members as the more permanently based members of the Tsalala Pride. Thank you, Blair, for clearing that up. I've been in a state of constant confusion. You have quite happily solved that problem for me. And as a further addition to confusion, just to make things a little, just to add that little stir to the naming pot, the Tsalala Breakaways are also now known as the Mangeni Pride. The Birmingham boys are now known as the Gowrie males, from different guides in different areas, since they came from the Gowrie area. And all in all, I am going to try and get to terms with the Tsalalas. But that being said, I'm so excited to see new females. Oh, there's going to be some growling. I can hear some growling. They're very gentle warning to stay away from the kill. In the entire time that we've been here, this female has dominated the buffalo kill, although they've both had equal access to food. They both look as though they've swallowed beach balls overnight. But the female with the carcass has been very protective over it. When we first arrived, she picked it up and dragged it away from the other female. A little baby buffalo is not a meal to be scoffed at for two lionesses. Although it is a once-off thing, they're going to leave this probably later today. There is a good couple of kilograms of meat in it. It's kept them well fed, given them some very full bellies, and it must be a huge relief for them to not have to share it with those Matimba males, because one Matimba male could finish off a buffalo calf by himself. At least these two lionesses were able to share and get a good meal out of it. Using that rough tongue of hers, incredibly spiny, and that's another weapon in her armory. Interesting observation. If we could just get her to smile at us, you might be able to answer Brenda's question. Brenda, you were wondering if she's got a missing left fang. I hadn't noticed, but I must admit I was just... Yes, you're right. Well done, Brenda. That was very impressive. She's not missing it, it's broken. So there's a bit of a stump where it was, but there is definitely not a full lion canine tooth. There we go. You can just see that stump sticking out there. That was very, very well observed, Brenda. Well, there you go. We will never ever mistake this lioness again. It's actually not that common to see lionesses, unless they're very old, with broken or missing canines. We'll take note of that as an identifying feature. Oh, Brian, I'm so sorry. The smell is just wafting. Well, we've been spending time with a new set of lionesses for me. I believe that James is headed back to explore his Senegal lapwing nest that he found yesterday afternoon. So let's have a look and see if there's any action on the egg side, and I will be back with you very shortly.
Eggs for breakfast. Not these ones though. These ones are the eggs of the little Senegal lapwing, and we came past here. We knew where the nest was. It wasn't an incredible spotting feat on my part. We knew they were here, and the lapwings are not around. They're out foraging, obviously. In fact, there is one there, Jean-Andre. If we just go up a little bit away, watching us very carefully. There is the mother bird there. And so 4 little eggs that the lapwing, Senegal lapwing, there she is, has laid and is looking after very carefully. So we certainly wouldn't get out of the car to go and point them out or anything like that. That would stress her out horribly. She doesn't know what the camera's looking at. Then, on the side of birds and their youngsters, being the breeding season, Scott very cleverly the other day managed to get a picture of a lilac-breasted roller's nest, and we went back into the same thing, and we filmed it with this telephone, which I've now managed to ruin. There we go, here we go. Okay, now what we're going to do is show you, or try to show you, the image of... How's that, John? Can you see anything there?
Yeah.
Okay, now it's about 18 seconds long, and you can see it's grown already since Scott did this, and the bird is it's starting to get slightly lilac feathers on its wings, and there it moves. There you can see that. Isn't that sweet? So we'll keep doing that every so often. We'll keep doing that and just checking to see how those birds are doing. Thank you, Jeffrey in Texas. Apparently you had a look at that boxing mantis and you said you thought it might be a bark mantis. I would agree. I think it's probably one of the bark mantises. Lots of different kinds of them, of course, but perhaps one of the bark mantises. Right, on we go. Okay, so we're going to head off towards our breakfast. So we're not going to tarry too long with you. Thank you very much for your questions and comments today. Thank you, Jean-Dre, for your efforts on drive, rather than doing this driving. For your last few minutes of drive, we'll send you back to Jamie, who is sitting with Tebs and the lions. And we'll see you this afternoon. Bye-bye, and thanks a lot.
Well, when I started this morning's sunrise safari, I certainly didn't expect to get lucky enough to see two lionesses that I've never seen before. For some reason, that's always an exciting experience, and so far, weirdly, I feel like most of my experiences with new lion prides have been with Brian. Now, there you go, Brian. We're continuing on with our pattern. I'm apologizing again for exposing both of us to the scent of lion scat. Thank you to all of you for your suggestions as to removal of it. I will possibly end up trying most of them. We'll see how we go, and failing that, burning the tire and buying a new one. Brian's nodding in agreement. I think that he feels that is possibly the only viable solution to the scent of lion scat attached to your tire. I'm not exaggerating, it's terrible. It's so smelly. Now, Clay, you might have missed the update from this morning, right? We've got the two Tsalalas from the main pride. There's also, of course, that female without the tail and the 3 young sub-adult males. Clay, I have some wonderful news, and I'm so glad that I was wrong about this. It appears as though that sub-adult male is alive. He hasn't been seen now in 2 days, but it's really, really crucial that he reunites with the rest of that group as quickly as possible. He is just too young to be out and about on his own, but still, I'm thrilled to say that I was wrong. I really thought the Birmingham boys had killed him, and I'm happy to hear that he escaped them. He's obviously more resilient than I myself gave him credit for. Very impressed with him, especially given the injury that he had, although it seems to be healing up very nicely. So wonderful news, and accompany with these two lionesses and fantastic prospects for our afternoon drive. There's a good chance these guys are going to head across to Arathusa Dam, so keep your eyes peeled. After a meal of buffalo, there's nothing better than a slightly weedy drink. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on a sunrise safari. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. And of course, a big thank you and welcome back again to Brian.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on board with us, as well as to James, Jean-Dre and Tebs, who are on the back of Wendy. Big thanks to Nikki and Tara, who've been filling us in on the whole lion situation and, of course, passing across your brilliant questions. Well, wherever you are in the world, have a fantastic day or a fantastic evening, and we will catch you for the Sunset Safari. Bye-bye for now.